Hey everyone, as I said in my intro video, I'm going to be doing some short videos throughout this entire week, summing up the class. There is a lot going on with COVID-19, and we'll get into that more in the coming days. As I've been told, at some of the highest levels, there'll be some major announcements later this week. One thing I do want to point out as you're starting to read chapter 16 today. Chapter 16 is all about how are we going to make sports better? It's all about what is the vision of sport? And that was a big part of your presentation. How are we going to do things better? How are we going to be agents of change? One thing, as I continue to mention, is COVID-19 has greatly impacted athletics at all levels, even the youth level, all the way down. And what we're coming to find is the impact is greater than anyone could ever imagine. And another thing that has really highlighted is how are we structured in the major universities. So what do I mean by that? The big time state schools, they are structured around major money that comes in from their two main sports, which is football and basketball. Now, earlier in the semester, earlier in the 6 weeks, I should say, we discussed how, football overall loses money for their institutions. And that is still very, very much true. What it is highlighting, though, is even though these institutions don't make money, they do help maintain what they're already doing by ticket sales and vendors and TV contracts. So when we look at this fall, if college football cannot have fans, the major college football institutions cannot have fans, cannot have vendors, can't and are just relying on their TV contracts, okay, right? CBS paying the University of Iowa a large chunk of money for their game versus, Penn State, okay? We'll leave it at that. Then there's some real issues there because they're not bringing in enough money to pay the head coaches, the equipment, and all of that. There's also, as I mentioned, other institutions that are already in not a good place. So UCLA has not typically over the last couple years been really good at football, and so they haven't made major bowls. They're already in the red for an athletic department. And as I said, now they're potentially losing this Under Armour deal because Under Armour is struggling. What it's just highlighting is that we are really sometimes putting the cart before the horses, that we are, valuing this one piece in an institution, and when that piece is gone, how much it could gravely impact the entire education system. It can also gravely impact the athletic future, as people have talked about the impact not having March Madness. Again, for you who aren't major sports fans, March Madness is the basketball event that happens in March, and it was canceled. And so the NCAA lost millions of dollars in regards to TV and ticket sales. So what impact does that have on us long term? They're also now starting to discuss, if you read any news, this is, again, all rumors, but there's real discussion about moving college football to the spring so that they don't lose as much money and we can get crowds back in the stands. But what does that mean for the rest of athletics? Does all fall sports move to the spring? There's other issues when you start to talk about things like that. I mean, there's facility issues, even at the highest level. There's athletic training issues. There is sports information issues. So what are we going to prioritize, right, as a society? Obviously, we should be prioritizing the health and well-being of everybody. We have to prioritize making sure these institutions can stay open. We don't want a lot of colleges closing. Nobody does. That's not good either. And then the second part is, how do we continue to do something that clearly brings joy, brings happiness, and a mental wellness to everyone. COVID-19 is a very, very complicated and integral virus that is affecting all of us. So out throughout this week, I'm sure I will have plenty of updates. So as we talk about chapter 16 though, and we look at it without the COVID-19 eye, right? They're really talking about some different models of the future and what that should look like. And they, questions about who should be in power, who should be making these decisions. And, they also talk about how do we start to incorporate participation and power and performance, and how do we continue to teach the importance of both. They talk about some current trends that are happening. What is clear is that sports have an impact on our society so much that, there was obviously, if we take NASCAR, for example, NASCAR took a step and removed the Confederate flag from its venue. So you cannot have the Confederate flag in its venue of any type. And that was a statement that the NASCAR wanted to take, that this flag represents, a history of hate. And they don't want it a part of their organization. Well, that has really kind of amped things up to the point that our president even tweeted about his unhappiness with NASCAR not allowing the Confederate flag to be a part of it. So, when you think about this is major. We have the president of the United States tweeting, or at least having a conversation about NASCAR. So when we talk about sports, it's not just us playing or money making. They are doing things that are making statements that are really affecting our entire society. That also goes along with kneeling during the national anthem. And, and the list is so on and so on. So what current trends do I think sports are going to do? I think sports are going to be a place where they are continually making statements and taking a stance for equality. I think it's going to be a place where they are going to also really make others know that all are welcome. And it's clear that's the direction sports are going. It'll be interesting to see what the NFL does if there's no COVID, okay? So again, let's think no COVID land with the national anthem. The NFL has had some really strong takes about standing during the national anthem. And, we didn't get to talk a ton about it. This is one of those discussions I wish I could be with you in person. But, the NFL for a long time was receiving money from the government to play the national anthem. Otherwise, they didn't want to play it. They literally didn't play it for a long time because it disrupted things. It's a long backstory. But what kind of stance are they going to take once the season does get rolling? And one thing right now is that the week prior to season, the first week, they're going to be playing the Black national anthem, and there is a national anthem, and what kind of stance are they going to take? So again, what I'm trying to get at, as you read chapter 16 and they talk about the future of sports and that all of us are going to be playing sports longer, and we're going to emphasize kind of the fun part of it. I also think sports are going to be an avenue of a voice of the greater good of individuals. It's going to be a place where we are going to start slowly, and it's going to be slowly being a place where all feel welcome. Now, with that being said, we have learned over these last 6 weeks that not all are welcome to sports, right? Meaning transgenders still is not as clear in where they fit in and where they don't fit in, as I shared with you, and their rights to play. Also, ableism. People of able body and able mind are allowed to participate, but individuals who have different abilities don't always get access to the same things of others. So there's still some major gaps in athletics. So as you read chapter 16, I just again urge you to start to think about, especially if you think sports are going to be a part of your long-term lifestyle, whether that's because you're going to participate, or you see yourself coaching, or you hope to have children someday that play athletics, or you're going to have a job that's around athletics. How can you be an agent of change? What can you do to help in these areas?